Hello and welcome to today's grand incident. When it comes to video games, there's one name that stands on top, recognized by all. I'm of course talking about Mr. Video Game himself, Nintendo's main mascot, Mario. There's probably not a single person who doesn't know Mario. He's that famous. With such a prestigious name, it's no surprise many developers would use the ever-successful format as a base for their own platformers. What does this have to do with Touhou? Well, there's one character who loves mushrooms just as much as the retired plumber. And as it happens, her name is only one syllable off of his. Such a character is bound to find themselves the protagonist of one of these Mario-style games. That's what I wanted to talk about today, what is likely the first Touhou fan game of the style ever released. The game known as Super Marisa Land. The game was released May 4th, 2005 by Doujin Circle Twilight Frontier, and is a Mario Bros. Style game starring Kirisame Marisa as the protagonist. The goal of the game is simple: reach the end of the level and grab the golden mushroom to move on to the next. There's no story or anything like that here, and all the text is in English, so getting right into the game is real easy. You start with 5 lives, but even if you game over, you can jump right back into the stage you died on. The benefit of extra lives is to keep your checkpoints throughout the levels, and believe me, some of these levels make you dread a potential full replay, so be careful. Marisa will always start small, referred to in this game as 2-head proportion, and can increase her size by grabbing mushrooms. Brown mushrooms increase Marisa's size by 1 to a max of 4, and red mushrooms double your current size to a max of 8. Proportion 3 and 4 don't have any special aspects to them. Proportion 6 lets you shoot a projectile with the run button, but you can't do it crouched. Proportion 8 is full invincibility for a bit, and when it runs out you return to Proportion 4. Taking damage halves your current size, and a hit while Proportion 2 results in a death. The main game consists of 20 stages with varying themes. These themes include forests, caves, lakes, ice caves, and castles. Forest stages are the basics, consisting mostly of the enemy known as Kadama. Kadama are fuzzballs that are commonly used in fan games as grunt enemies alongside fairies. They seem to be somewhat canon? I'm not really sure, I've just come to accept that they exist, and they aren't going anywhere anytime soon. Back on topic, fairies are here too, but tend to only show up when you have to jump on them to cross a pit. Lastly here are plants with lips. These enemies either bite or walk towards you. You won't really know until you get close. This enemy is absolutely atrocious to deal with. Their hitboxes are awful, and you will very likely get hit by the corner of their petals trying to jump over them. I neglected to mention, but this game shares its camera design with that of the original Mario Bros. What that means is you can't scroll the screen left at all, but the plants that run off screen in that direction are still capable of moving and hitting you in the back. This is all without mentioning the amazing air physics this game has, but I'll get into that at the end. For now, let's return to the stages. Next theme is the caves. Almost every level here is some type of gimmick, ranging from boulders to bridges and even block mazes. The boulders in particular are the worst since you have to get close enough to trigger them into rolling, but because of the camera, you can't retreat if they fall into your path. Block mazes are obnoxious to navigate, but they are the shorter type of level you'll find here, so it's not too bad. Bridges are also pretty straightforward. You just have to run through some phantoms, which are exclusive to this stage. Phantoms bob up and down, and you can jump on them. I was afraid to try because in Mario games that never works. There are also spiders that try to match your position. They move kinda slow and are pretty rare, so they're not much of a threat. There is a level here that uses collapsing blocks, known in the Mario series as donut blocks, but these blocks are more of a gimmick in the next theme, that theme being the lake. Lake levels don't actually have any water you can swim in, they're more like sky levels honestly. As I mentioned, donut blocks are used a lot here. What I didn't explain though is how they work. These blocks give zero indication that they're about to fall, they just drop after about a second of you standing on them. They also don't respawn, so if you mess up a jump that requires them to get through, then you're just boned. It's also worth noting that these blocks aren't considered solid for power-ups, meaning mushrooms that drop onto them just fall right through. Another aspect of these stages is the conveyor belts. They do exactly as they indicate and are a little awkward, but compared to some of the other things in this game, they're a blessing. Only other thing to mention here is the fish enemy. They jump out from pits and bite, that's it. You can bait them to jump early if you know where they are, but again, no indication of where that is, and when you're over the donut blocks, that's barely an option. I should also mention that their hitboxes are almost as bad as the plants. The closer you are to the bottom of the screen, the harder they are to get over. Did you like the caves? Now for the ice version. These stages are the most uncommon and arguably the least troublesome. Aside from the pits, the only hazards here are Kadama and spikes. Seems like they decided that the ice physics alone were hard enough, and opted out of too much crazy stuff. Some of these stages do have a neat use of the ice, requiring you to do precise jumps to avoid hitting an enemy and bonking your head against the spikes. That's all I got here. It's really just a lot of slipping and sliding and spikes. The last theme is the castle. Castles are full of spikes as well, but also feature a couple of nifty traps. First is the spike ball. They rotate around a block and are decently large. You're safe if you stand on the block they're rotating around, as long as there isn't more than one in the area. Second is the 32-ton weight that falls if you get near it. This one is an instant kill, so watch your head. Castle levels don't have any unique enemies to them, using only Kodama and fairies. It's just nice knowing that I'll never see that stupid plant here. Getting to the end of the 20th level, Marisa will grab the large golden mushroom, and will immediately grow to forehead proportion. From here you'll get your score totals. For me it was a lot of zeros because of restarts, then the credits. Right at the end, Marisa will show up at Alice's house and throw a mushroom at her. Then the game tells you to try the extra stages. The extra stages are truly something. The stage select goes all the way up to 99, but there's actually only 25 to play. These levels are ridiculous, and full of all the stuff you came to hate. Some stages even get new stuff, the biggest example being the castles, where they receive laser launching pedestals, and the Thinker, shooting lasers out of their eyes. These stages also don't advance you to the next on a win, so you're always going to start with 5 lives. It's actually kind of refreshing how many new ideas get done in these bonus stages, even if not all of them hit the mark. My personal favorite is the speedrun stage, that requires you to get through it while maintaining 8 head proportion the whole time. I started playing assuming there was 99, and it took me almost an hour just to beat stage 1. I was very confused when I finished the last available stage and nothing else would load, but that confusion was pretty quickly replaced with relief. Why did I decide to play all 99? I was told that when you finish them all, you unlock Alice, and turns out it was true. Alice comes equipped with exploding dolls that she throws upwards and can destroy blocks. Alice is also permanently locked into 2 head proportion, and dies if she touches a mushroom. I have absolutely no desire to play any of these stages with this character. The reward wasn't worth the effort, but I did it, so I at least confirm for myself that Alice is real. Super Marisa Land is certainly a game. The visual presentation is top notch, and the music is catchy. Unfortunately, I have a lot more negatives than positives to say. Going back to what I mentioned during the plant rant, this game has some really weird mechanics. Momentum on the ground is a bit slippery, but in the air it's another story. Jumping without any speed behind you makes Marisa just drop while barely moving. On the other hand, jumping with speed launches you, and slowing yourself down to land is incredibly difficult. When you bounce off an enemy, you keep whatever momentum you had from your original jump, so you have to constantly adjust yourself to continue bouncing, as sometimes the game wants you to use multiple fairies to cross a gap. There are also times when you camera lock yourself too far right, and can't build enough speed to make a jump. On top of the one-tile platforming where you get no room to build anything, but are expected to make big jumps. The best way I can describe this aerial resistance is ice physics, but in the air. This is only one thing, but in a Mario-style platformer, it's the most important one. Another smaller complaint is the lack of things to collect, like coins and power-ups. The mushrooms themselves have some cool variety, but they're the only thing to collect. There's no floating sparkly objects to grab. All extras come from blocks or enemy drops. With all that said, I do think this game is worth trying yourself. At least the first 20 levels are, to see how the Marisa Land series began. Regarding the Circle, Twilight Frontier, they are still active to this day. They're the group that works with Zun to make the Touhou fighters, and most recently Touhou 17.5, which is a side-scroller Danmaku game. Super Marisa Land was the first Touhou fan game Twilight Frontier made independent of Zun, so I'm not surprised that it's a bit rough around the edges. They would eventually continue the series with New Super Marisa Land, a sequel that addresses a lot of the issues I had here, and most recently Marisa Land Legacy, which is a reimagining of the original. I haven't played Legacy, but I'm pretty certain that it's a massive improvement over this one. Twilight Frontier has quite a few other Touhou fan games that I would love to talk about at some point, but those are projects for another day. With all that said, time for the rating. Super Marisa Land is very obviously a ranked Cherno of a game. Let me explain why. There is no story here, just gameplay. The only important characters in the game are Marisa and Alice, and you could completely miss Alice being here. Marisa is likely only the main character here because of her affiliation with mushrooms. While fairies and the Kodama are in Touhou, they aren't exactly something unique to the series. Would you agree or disagree? Let me know what you think. While my overall opinion of Super Marisa Land isn't as high as the other games I've talked about, I would still say it's worth experiencing for yourself. If my explanation for jumping is confusing, then all you need to do is try it out. I'm sure you'll come to understand. If you're interested in the concept but not the game itself, I would recommend trying one of the game's sequels, as they're definitely more polished. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you during the next incident.